What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Podcasting in the Dark. This is the final episode of Halloween 2024. End of the season until next year. Maybe. We'll find out. Unless you guys hit me up on my Instagram at asparaguts and tell me, hey, I have a story I want to share, in which case we can make an episode. But I hope you guys are having a great spooky season. I hope you're watching lots of scary movies, and I hope you had a rager of a pre-Halloween weekend, because Halloween is on like a Wednesday this year, which is atrocious. But we have a very special guest today. We have one of the two hosts of the Floundering podcast, Isabelle King. Isabelle, tell me something scary.
First of all, the pressure's on because this is the closer episode.
Yeah.
I got to bring it home.
Yeah, you definitely have to.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the scary story is my family come from a big extended family, both sides. My mom's side of the family has been going up to this house in the Adirondacks for my entire life, and for my mom's entire life. It's super remote, upstate New York. It started out as like a small cabin that was built in the 30s by my grandpa's family. And then over the years, like we added another house so they could accommodate like the harem of cousins.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a gorgeous place, but like when I say remote, it's like maybe don't eat the meat from the grocery store because it maybe has been there since my mom was a teen. You know?
It's like way out of the way. Yeah.
Yes. It's like the type of town where it's like there's gas station, there's coffee store, there's grocery store.
Yeah.
And then there's like pub. Like everything's like labeled as the one thing in that town. Yeah. It's a lovely place, but I think growing up, we were like always kind of aware of spirit happenings. There have been 2 sightings amongst the family members of who we believe is our great aunt Edith. She's a friendly spirit, but I do feel like with a name like Edith, like you're going to be lurking around.
Yeah. She's going to scare you for wearing pants instead of a long dress or something.
Exactly. Like she's going to yell at you for like having your hair in your face. You know what I mean? Or like having your elbows on the table.
Right.
She's like a manners police ghost. So 2 sightings of her. Both have been like in the middle of the night, kind of like you wake up, apparition in the corner, quickly dissipates. But 2 people, separate people, have had that experience. So that's one. There is a massive abandoned property on the other side of the lake that we can see from our house. It belonged to like a textile mogul in like maybe the 50s when like textiles were booming. And it's completely abandoned. Okay. And like to the point where like we'll go through creepy walks through this property and all of the furniture is still in the house. Like you can peek inside and see like a full dining room table with chairs around it, like framed pictures, mirrors. Like it is a full intact home that has just like become decrepit. There's also a dog cemetery with like their dog's names labeled next to the little dog hut.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like the fun bag of most creepy things on this one little abandoned property. There have also been a couple times where like we'll be in the house and we'll look across the lakefront and we'll see like a fire on the point or like a light on in their boathouse.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It is literally the Netflix Hill House.
No, for sure. It's like they've served us this creepy story on a silver platter.
Yeah.
We're like not sure if it's like ghostly stuff or like kids hopped up on Monster Energy drinks and like bath salts, but either way.
I mean, if I lived in that small town and I was a teen and we had grocery store, gas station, pub, and my friends were like, do you want to go to the abandoned house? And
we're grabbing Monster Energy drinks and Four Locos because they're still sold there. Because again, like laws don't reach this corner of upstate New York.
They still sell mango jewel pods up there.
And by the plenty. Yeah, if you want your Zins, come upstate. We got you. So there's that. And we also had our very own resident serial killer in the 70s. His name's Robert Garrow. You can look him up. He's like run-of-the-mill raping and pillaging, killing campers type of serial killer.
Yeah.
And the story is actually pretty nuts. Like he was in jail and pretended to be infirm or paralyzed and was low-key like using his wheelchair to do push-ups and like exercises to get himself jacked. Ended up escaping. So anyway, he killed a bunch in those woods.
Mm-hmm.
And for a period of time, he was held in the local jail cell where the town is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a teeny thing, but I think worth noting. There's a very progressive but Christian camp right next to ours.
Mm-hmm.
They're lovely people, open-hearted folk, but there's like worshiping that happens in the woods.
Yeah.
Like you'll go on a hike and you'll see like a little crocheted cross every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a rainbow friendly cross, but you're like, a cross in the woods.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
So you have like this, you're like in this spot where it's just like a million creepy things at once.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I think growing up, we kind of like, it was all fun and games.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, oh, like House in the Woods, like some creepy vibes, nothing nefarious. Like it was just kind of like a fun little creepy story we like to tell amongst ourselves. And it's all fun and games until my family moves overseas for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And for context, like before we moved overseas, we would go to this place like once in the summer for an extended period of time, once in the winter. But when we moved overseas, we didn't come back in the winter. Just trip was too long and where we lived was warm. So it was just like,
yeah.
Let's enjoy the warmth. So anyway, one of these winters away, two of my cousins who are kind of like sisters to me, we had this one back room that we always slept in. And they decided to crack out the Ouija board.
In the old house.
Yeah, exactly. They crack out the Ouija. And like, it's funny because I do feel like there are these like very quintessential coming of age moments.
Yeah.
Like getting too drunk for the first time, your bar bat mitzvahs, and then there's like your first Ouija. They had their first Ouija without me, which of course was traumatic. But anyway, they're in the back room where we sleep, and they managed to conjure up a spirit of a guy named, I think it was David.
Mm-hmm.
But they basically asked the Ouija a bunch of questions like, has anyone drowned in the lake? The Ouija answers yes. Was it, boy or girl? Boy. What was the boy's name? David. It also could have been like any run-of-the-mill white guy name, but I do think it was David. So anyway, they're freaking out. But again, it's like a funny little story that they hold on to and tell me when I'm back.
Right.
And, we like kind of add David to the list of like crosses in the woods, Garrow raping and pillaging, Aunt Edith doing her thing. Like it's just another kind of like funny little story that we tell about the lake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all fun and games until one summer we had moved back and we're sleeping in the back room. And for context, like our sleeping situation was pretty competitive. Like there was, there's like a queen bed, and then there was a cot next to the door, which my cousin slept on because she's like a thrasher in her sleep and we can't be dealing with that.
Yeah.
So she always got the cot. And then my other cousin and I would always fight between, all right, who had their back to the woods because this room was on the corner of the house, and who was in the middle. And if you're in the middle, someone always has your six. You're always covered. You've got one cousin on one side, other cousin on the other. And then the other cousin on the far side is vulnerable.
It's like a thing that you guys are feeling like, I don't want to be close to the woods wall.
Oh, completely. We're like, I don't want to be the first to go if someone comes in through the window.
And you are like high school, college age, what?
To this very day, I would refuse to sleep on the wood side of the bed.
And is it like just like a screen window or glass window?
Glass window with like one of those crank screens that you can open.
Gotcha.
Obviously, we have them hermetically sealed shut at night.
But
curtains closed.
You have just had a lifelong like, we don't want to be the closest one to the woods
at
night.
The wood there's secrets in those woods.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the first person they tell the secret to.
Wow.
So we could sense like no one wants to fuck with the far side of the bed.
I love that nobody wants it. That's
Absolutely
crazy.
not.
I could see like in my family, I could see like me or my brother being like, I don't like this particular thing, being like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll take it. But to have everyone unanimously be like, I don't want that bed.
Yeah, we're like vibes are sour over there and like maybe a little bit murderous. So I would prefer to be like, swaddled by both of my cousins. Needless to say, I was not swaddled this night. I had the far side. I have had experiences in that room before that like I kind of wrote off as like creepy but explainable. Like once I was in the middle of the bed so safe, secure, at peace. But I feel someone like kind of trying to wake me up. They're like shaking my shoulder. And I turn over, assuming it's my cousin who's on the wood side, and she's in the bathroom. No one's there. I was like, okay, that was maybe Edith. Fingers crossed that's Edith. Yeah. Just kind of like, why don't you have a full face of makeup on while you sleep?
Hey, you didn't pray before bed.
Exactly. So anyway, my cousin comes out of the bathroom and I'm like, best not to tell her this because again, she's on the vulnerable side.
Yeah.
So stow that away. Anyway, flash forward to this night. We're going to sleep, 3 bugs in a rug. And I'm in that like liminal kind of like not quite asleep phase. Like I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm not asleep, but my eyes are closed and I'm like getting sleepy. And I can just like sense something around us. So my eyes like really like loosely flutter open. And the second they open, I see this like really menacing male presence in a flannel right next to my bed.
Whoa.
And I fucking shriek, like punching, thrashing. Like I really believe that there is someone right next to the bed.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel ghostly. It felt like someone had broken in.
Whoa.
So anyway, punching, thrashing, my cousins turn on the light, nothing's there. And I'm like full body sweat, freaked out, but like kind of at peace knowing that whatever I saw was fake.
Yeah. And the light is on now.
And the light is on now, yeah. So you're safe. Yeah. So everything's okay.
Yep, everything's cool.
All the creepy crawlies are exposed and there were none there. And so I am aware of how freaked I must have made them. So I'm like, guys, I had a bad dream. Like I kind of try to write it off as like, it's all good. Like I totally imagined something. Don't think twice. And they're like, yeah, no, we're pretty fucking freaked out. I think we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
And so we like all kind of stare at each other for a second. And then we like each respectively like sprint out of the room into our respective parents' rooms. I like big spooned my mom for the remainder of the night.
Yeah.
Like made her rub my back and tell me everything was okay. But I think we like managed to finish the summer sleeping in that room. But like, I can't set foot in that room. Like it's been tough for me since. And I'm not like, I think I'm easily freaked. Like I get freaked out pretty easily. But when it comes to like little freak experiences that you can kind of write off as a dream, I wouldn't let something like that kind of like sour my experience with a room or a house.
Yeah.
But there's something different. Like if I go into that back room to like get a towel, it could be the middle of the day, curtains open, sun streaming in, and I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Interesting. And this is the extension that was built later, right? This
is the extension that was built later. And the same room where my cousins managed to conjure.
Oh, the Ouija board.
The Ouija.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, it's curious how like Lumberjack isn't coming for you guys who conjured him.
Right.
Like he's coming for the person who wasn't there.
Yeah.
Kind of like, hey, can you get your cousins in line? Like, I don't know what his message was.
I think you got to go back and bust the board back out.
What do you want from me?
Yeah. Hey, what was that about?
Why are you here?
Yeah. Wow. I would not be able to be in that room.
No,
either,
certainly not. And it's funny because like, I think they feel something in there too, obviously now since that's happened. But yeah, there's something about a menacing, like, male, like I can deal with creepy Aunt Edith, like give me a Victorian kind of apparition who's, like lost at sea. A fucking lumberjack ghost, like I'm out. That was too much for me to handle.
Men are scary when they're alive.
Men are scary alive and dressed normally and clean shaven. Like the best of men are still scary.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I think jury's kind of still out on who it was. Like in my bones, I believe it was this guy.
Yeah.
Drowned David, who was kind of like, hey, don't bring me into this. Like you guys can have your fun up here, but like you have to understand I drowned here, so I don't want to be back.
Right. Are you like, is this cabin like right up on the water?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
Like if curtains are open during the day, you could see the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not like on a dock, like
No,
right there.
no.
Basically. Okay.
But close enough where you're like aware of the water close by.
Interesting. To be honest, I don't think I could handle Aunt Edith at all.
Yeah.
Well,
now I'm like fingers crossed for Aunt Edith.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I'm waking up in the middle of the night, I better have a woman yelling at me that I need to like sit with my legs crossed. I don't want David coming in here, with his menacing flannel.
That's fair. I feel like consuming a lot of horror movies, I feel like the wake up and the thing is there is probably the worst one because you're also defenseless because you're coming out of sleep.
It scratches. It's my greatest fear. Like, and I feel like there's all of these like universal freaky things that we all share, like checking behind a shower curtain if you're the first person in the bathroom to make sure that there's no one murderous wearing a flannel maybe behind it. Yeah. I also had one experience. This was overseas. And I could talk for days about our overseas house because that was a whole other conundrum. But I'm showering. And again, like my greatest fear is eyes open and like I'm meeting my maker.
Right.
And so I'm showering. My eyes are closed. I open my eyes. It's black. Like it is pitch fucking black in the bathroom that I'm in.
Great.
The power had gone out.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is it. Like, this is, for all of the people who told me not to be afraid, eat your fucking words.
Here it is.
Because I'm in darkness. I'm consumed in darkness.
Yeah, perfect timing. I would lose my mind. Like,
oh yeah. Well, of course, like, because I'm also a hypochondriac. I was like, I'm blind. I'm blind. I have a tumor, and it's here to take me.
It's been growing, and today was lights out day.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is kind of in the same vein. When airplanes land, it's kind of really intense for a minute when the wheels hit. Sure. I used to kind of like grip a little bit for a lot of my life. But in the last like 10 years, my solution to get over it is just, I tell myself every time, I die this time. This is the time the wheels explode and the airplane goes tumbling down the runway and everyone gets it all over the news. And I just go, you know what? I'm okay. If I die, it's fine.
See, that is really wise. Just to like get on a plane and be like, hey, this is it. No worries. I sent my texts. Like, exactly. And now to this day, like I'm on a plane, I'm shooting off I love you texts unprompted to everyone in my contact
People
list.
Are like, hey, we haven't talked in a few years.
Yeah,
Are you
like,
all right?
You good?
Like, just flying to South Carolina for a wedding. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, idling on the tarmac at JFK, but I did want to tell you that I'm thinking about you.
Yeah. And I also think I'm like, part of me is like, if it does happen and explodes, I mean, terrifying, awful way to go. But like, then I'm kind of a legend. Oh, then people in my hometown are going to be like, dude, he died in the one plane crash.
It's like, oh my
this
God,
year.
Maxim. Yeah. Like he beat the odds. He died on a plane.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's real.
Yeah.
But just kind of like submitting to that. And maybe that's how I should be approaching kind of like falling asleep in this Adirondack house where it's like, hey, you're going to wake up. You're going to see Lumberjack Man.
And he's going to drown you in the lake.
And he's going to put a pillow over your face.
Yeah.
And he's going to do it until you kick and scream and can't kick and scream anymore. But you will be a legend.
Yeah. You're going to go back with the cousins. Then before you go to bed, you're like, hey guys, I just love you so much. Anyway, good night.
It's so funny because we must all have the same like sickness as cousins. Like it must all stem from the same tainted gene pool. But every single one of us, when we were growing up, had these like wild bedtime routines of being like, night mom, night dad, love you, see you in the morning, night Harry, night Will, love you. Like we would run through every single family member out loud, like night, love you, see you in the morning.
Wow.
See you in the morning being the operative word because it was like, if I say that, nothing's taking me at night.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm admitting to you is a long gene pool of OCD.
I feel I don't do that for good night. It's usually just like walk by the room, everyone's in like night. But this is something I don't know. Is your family like Northeast natives?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because people talk about the Midwest goodbye, and I feel like that's kind of in the same vein where
interesting.
I can't leave a party unless I say goodbye to every single person I talk to during that time at the party. And when I'm at a party and I talk to one of my friends, and then in an hour they're just gone because they left. I'm like, rude.
Oh, yeah. It's like you didn't think to have a 15-minute goodbye conversation
you didn't
with me?
Say goodbye to the 30 or 40 people you spoke with tonight, you know?
There's a receiving line of like, yeah, you shaking hands, kissing babies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Colorado,
Okay.
in Denver area, but my family's like basically from Michigan.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's so funny. The Midwest goodbye. There's definitely like elements of that with like Northeast families too. We all have a hard time saying goodbye, but there is a Northeast good night, I guess. Or maybe it's just my extended family good night.
Hey, good night, guys. Love you. Please wake up in the morning.
We're just so afraid to go to bed that we just keep saying good night, love you until it's the next day. We've never slept.
You listened, I don't know which episode of this you listened to warm up for this, but during my wedding stay in August in a cabin, Lake Michigan, 1890s, it's haunted. It is not scary. It's not like bad haunted.
Sure.
It is just passively.
There's a presence.
Yeah. The first time we ever stayed at this cabin, it was a really windy and stormy summer week. And it was perfect because it was beautiful weather all day, 3 p.m., 30 minutes of thunderstorm and rain, sun's back out, beautiful beach day.
Yeah.
And then at night, the waves were really big. So in every room, you could leave the windows open and you could fall asleep to the sound of the waves. The last 2 times I've been there, it has not been the case. And the lake has been very still and very quiet. So you're sleeping in this old ass cabin where the rooms are all connected to each other because the ceiling is open and it's old. So anytime someone...
You're not even at the scary part of the story. And I'm like, no, I'm out.
Anytime someone rolls over or like adjusts in bed, their room creaks a little bit.
Yeah.
And my remedy to this is I put the fan that's on the desk next to all the beds, maximum speed, and I sleep with my head right there because I cannot handle it otherwise.
Okay, it's nuts that you're saying this. I did listen to this episode.
Okay, yeah.
And when I listened to this part, I was like, I have to address this with Maxim. Every single person on my mom's side of the family sleeps with a box fan next to their bed. None of us can handle sleeping in silence. And honestly, for so many reasons.
Yeah.
But when you're up in the Adirondacks, like, who knows what little footsteps are going to be pitter-pattering or what creaks.
Yeah.
Like, even if it is just like an old house breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Old houses can breathe and make noises and it's not haunted. But if you're on Lake Michigan in a house that's known to be haunted, or in the Adirondacks with spirit crosses hanging from trees, if I'm hearing something in the middle of the night, I have to assume
the witch.
It's my time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I can only sleep in silence basically when I'm with my wife.
Yep.
And if I'm alone, I am always watching Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And I joke, I either sleep with my wife or I sleep with Jerry. Like when I'm like traveling for work in hotel rooms, I usually just turn the TV on History Channel.
Yeah.
Like I can't sleep in total silence.
You're like, I can handle Nazi invasions when I go to sleep, but like dead silence.
Yeah, don't do that to me.
Not fucking with that.
And honestly, one of the things I like about we have 3 cats, it's too many, but one of the things I like about them is there's a funny sound. One of the cats is just fucking around out there.
Oh,
like,
of course.
Oh, something fell over. There is nothing abnormal about our apartment. There is just cats here.
It's a cat up to some tomfoolery. It's funny because I think the opposite is true of dogs, where like my family has always grown up with dogs. And I want to love cats, but I'm allergic to them. So I will just preface that.
Right.
Dogs they have premonitions. Like I think that they like hear and see things like long before we do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always that like one, and whether it's in the Adirondacks or like in my own home, if I'm sleeping and my dog's like ears perk up in the middle of the night, I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, who's in the room? Ghost or like, it doesn't matter if you're like a corporeal being or a spirit being, like someone's here. And Roscoe is acknowledging the presence.
I have had that a couple times with my cat back when I lived alone with my cat. And it would just be like, hey, dude, like, can you cut that shit out? Like,
enough.
Hey, stop staring at that one corner. I would really like.
I don't know if you're messing with me or if you actually see something.
I don't know if you're just kind of zoning out and like having a thought, but like, don't do it like that. You're scaring the
Please
shit out of me.
Please don't look at in a mirror. You know what I mean? Please don't face the corner of a wall. So. And there have been like some experiences with dogs. And that's the other thing too. Everyone in my extended family on my mom's side like has minimum 2 dogs. So it's just like a pack of people and a pack of wolves while we're up there. And there have for sure been some middle of the night, like dogs just lose it at something.
Yeah.
And like, sure, maybe they see like whatever, a bear or Edith or whoever, but like there will be like pack movement in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's like when there's like an earthquake coming or like a tsunami and all the animals start
Take to the
edging
hills
towards the door and you're like, okay, so we have to deal with something now.
Yeah.
Like,
well, now I've like lost my free will. Like if Roscoe moves somewhere in the room, I'm following him. I'm like, I just have to believe that like you are perceiving something a couple seconds before I am.
Yeah.
So I'm following your lead, pal.
If the dog's ears perk up, turn on the light. That's just
lights are on.
Yep.
Yep, exactly. Like crowbar comes out.
Yeah.
I do sleep with a crowbar under my pillow, of course.
So you mentioned this overseas house. Where overseas are you talking about?
Yes. So we moved to Singapore.
Whoa.
My dad's in the government, and we didn't like, I feel like a lot of government kids move around a ton. We actually didn't move around that much. We were in DC and then moved to Singapore for like a couple years and then moved back to DC. And our house in Singapore, it's funny because like there are houses in Singapore that are like, you could just drive past them and you'd be like, yeah, someone was murdered in there. Like,
really?
Oh my God. They're gorgeous, but they're like these colonial houses called black and whites. And they were used as kind of like outposts for the British Army.
Okay.
Like they were basically like businesses or.
Oh, I didn't know Singapore was colonized.
Oh, for sure.
In my mind, okay, Singapore to me is it's an island where everywhere is Midtown.
Wait, that's such a good way of describing it.
I always imagine just like Hudson Yards. Every street is like Hudson Yards, but it's like really clean.
Oh, well, you're spot on.
I didn't even know there was going to be like old stuff there because like our perception of it is like hyper modern metropolis island.
Well, that is like for sure the external perception, and they love that that's the external perception.
Right.
That it's like this gambling hub, like, you know, this commerce center. And that is true. Like the downtown of Singapore, which is like consistently expanding, is like super sleek, super modern. There's like an Abercrombie and Fitch on every block.
Yeah.
Which, you know, a dream. A dream to all.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, there is that. But then there is this like very storied wartime history with Singapore. They had their independence. I'm not even going to try to pretend when I know they had their independence.
But this is like British Empire era stuff.
Big time. Yeah. Colonized. And so anyway, there are these gorgeous houses that when you're in them, you kind of like feel quasi outside, but they're big and they're airy and they are fucking haunted.
Really?
So there are those. We didn't live in one of those. We lived in like what any person's objective eye would have like seen as a modern home.
Right.
Like new build, in the middle of this like very suburban feeling neighborhood. Nothing on the outskirts or like on the outside of it creepy. But we learned that it was built on what we were told was like a weapons disposal area. Like, again, it's not like a mass grave, but like it is a mass grave of guns, which in many ways is not so chill to have your house on top of. How do you say not so chill? But like that's what our house is on top of. And it was hard to feel creeped out in this house just because, again, like everything was new. And it was like a rinse repeat. Like people who worked in the embassy, like that was the embassy house. Like people just cycled in and out. So it felt like lived in and clean and free of colonial terror.
Right.
In the way that the other houses were very full of. But we did have like several just off experiences in that house. I think I told this on Floundering, but I was home alone with the dogs. The dogs, of course, were next to me in my room and like stirred. And as they stir, I hear like what I thought was all of our silverware in our kitchen fall, like just loud metal clanging. I sprint downstairs and like nothing is there. Untouched kitchen, nothing on the floor anywhere. Like a nothing had fallen in the house, period.
Hmm.
So obviously I put them on a leash and I go on a walk for like 4 hours until my parents come back.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the end. I'm not going back in there alone. And then my dad and I had a really again, I'm going to tell this story and it doesn't sound creepy, but there is like a very funny thing that happens with like things that just feel banal and explainable. But that same banal and explainable thing happening and you're like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And it was one of those instances. So we were watching TV and the TV turns off.
Mm-hmm.
And of course my dad was like, fucking piece of shit, and like turns it back on. And it's a different channel, which is bizarre. And it goes off again. And my dad's like swearing and turns it back on. And then it starts to turn off and on by itself and just like rip through channels. And then finally just turns off. My dad and I were like, and we're going on a walk and sleeping outside.
It's time to walk to Midtown where the lights are on.
We're going to Abercrombie and Fitch. Yeah. It's on me.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just there was just a presence in that house for sure.
Jeez.
Yeah. I know. Creepy crawly type of stuff.
One of my good friends in college, he was from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I don't know if you have been to Baton Rouge.
No.
It's like an industrial riverfront tiny capital city.
Tickle me interested.
So it is kind of like nightmare fuel in that like everything is old. And the reason they call it Baton Rouge is because when the French were exploring that area, they found forests of these red spears stuck in the ground.
Come on now.
And it was a native, like, I believe like a religious spiritual thing or like a hunting tradition or something. But Baton Rouge means red sticks. There was just these red sticks in the woods everywhere.
Absolutely fucking not.
And of course they settled there, built a city, whatever. And so it like the way that New Orleans has like lore and like creepy legends about it, Baton Rouge has like that same kind of flavor, but instead of it being like, oh, a mix of like Creole and this and that, it just feels like this dark, evil, like woods river pit. Yeah. And we were taking a road trip one Thanksgiving, and we drove from like Boulder, Colorado through like Texas, like the whole South. We did this whole like multi-day thing. We stopped in Baton Rouge and we drove by his old house. And this is on our way to spend the night with his parents in Tampa for Thanksgiving. Like it was just big, long cross country road trip. We drive by his old house. He gets his address from his parents. And I go, yo, that house is haunted as fuck. Like we're in the car and it is like, it's a thing that like you could tell it was built in like a 60s, 70s style ranch house, right? Of all the ones on like this like subdivision that look like happy and normal, this one is in like the shadow of like this enormous tree, and like everything about it is like darker, where it's like, you know, in like cartoons when it's like a happy neighborhood and they're like, oh, what house are we going to?
And there's like one thunder. Yeah, exactly.
Like
lightning and thunder over one house.
And so we don't go in it or anything like that. We continue our journey, have fun. We get to Thanksgiving with his parents, who I had met for the first time. And we were talking about our trip up to that point. I go, we drove by your old house. And I was like, that place is haunted. And his little sister goes, yeah. And his mom goes, yeah. And
oh, shit.
They have stories. And like his younger sister, like we were in college. She was like mid high school at that time. But she was like, I distinctly remember like a like shadow of a man like always lurking around the one corner between the kitchen and the bathroom. So I never wanted to go in that hallway.
Oh my God.
And then one of them said they came home, or they entered a room and they just saw it like covered in like the shadows of like, it looked like rats were running all over the walls.
Oh my God.
But it was just like shadows or whatever. They turn the lights all gone. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, how do you live in a place like that? I don't know. I feel like.
See, this is what's funny to me. I'm like, you just tolerated that for your entire youth. Like I would have been out of there.
Yeah. I don't want to scare my future children one day, but I'm like, hey guys, if we ever move into a spot and you see something really
if you see
scary,
something, say something.
You see something, say something.
You will be telling, if anyone, and we're having the sex talk and we're having the ghost talk.
You're in the ghost talk. Yeah.
Where the children are sat down and I say, if you see a menacing spirit,
you
tell me and dad ASAP.
Yes.
And we'll make it right.
We're doing the birds and the bees, the shadows and the trees.
We're just going to knock out the hard conversation, the shadows and the trees. See, we need to be having more shadow and tree conversations with our children.
Because to be frank, if like, I know so many adults who have like seen something scary or were children, saw something horrifying and never told their parents. They're like, I wouldn't believe it. If I was a parent and my kid was like, hey dad, there's a shadow lurking just in the bathroom all the time, and be like, good to know. Thank you.
Cool.
We will rent this place. We'll find subletter and we're getting out of here.
On this topic, I don't know if you feel the same amount of terror that I do. I am so afraid of having a child that it has like a presence in it.
Ooh,
like a
I
little
never
bit
thought
of,
about
like
that,
a little bit of a
gross.
creepy kid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like someone who's coming into the room in the middle of the night being like, I saw things. And you're like, you're going to go back to your bedroom. We're going to lock our door. Mm-hmm. And we might be sending you to boarding school.
I think it would be cool to have a kid who does the reincarnation period, you know, when they're like 2 to 4 years old, when they have all these memories of like someone else.
I flew a bomber in World War I.
Yeah.
Like that's chill.
That'd be fun. They'd be like, oh, this is a little mystery.
Yeah.
But
he can break out his war stories at Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I don't need them to be like, Dad, I had a dream about you dying in this exact way.
Sure.
Again.
I don't want to be told how I'm going to go by my own spawn, quite frankly.
The thing I worry about with future children is I worry that I'm going to have like some uncontrollable like sports jock who just thinks I'm an idiot nerd and who just like wreaks havoc on everyone in his life. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like,
to have a kid who views me as a loser, I think is my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Like, do you know who your mom is? Like, you know, I got that sauce. Come on. Don't be mean to me like that.
Don't make me, I'll make you sleep in the back room at the cabin if you keep talking to me like that.
Yeah, you're going to meet Flannel Man if you treat your mother that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I Ouija in her bedroom just to make it right.
If you keep talking to me like that, you're going to have to do a session of the Ouija board.
Exactly.
Ugh. No, I have never used the Ouija board. Have you?
I did it once at camp, and it's funny because you need people bought in to getting freaked. Like you need people who are like fully willing to submit to that. And I think the whole time I was like, I will lose my mind if like a presence makes itself known. Yeah. So I was like very consciously moving the thing around. I wasn't like that bought into it. So I've Ouija'd, but I haven't gotten got by a Ouija, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I have steered clear. I saw the first Paranormal Activity where it catches on fire in the camera, and I was like, no, okay, I'm not touching that.
Well, also now I've learned that I am I'm susceptible to the spirits, and this is what I tell people. They're like, well, I'm never fucking coming up to the Adirondacks, and I'm like, it's okay. Like David chose me.
Yeah.
I am your protector. I am your shield. Like you're good up there.
Yeah, you're the first one to go.
Exactly. First to the woods, first to go. So yeah, if anyone is wanting to come up, I say do it because I have expunged the house and I hold all of its terror inside of me.
Nice.
At all times.
Nice.
Always.
The keeper of the terror.
The keeper of the terror.
And then one day you'll
secrets.
be Edith.
Of course. Yeah. Oh my God. To come back as Edith.
Yeah.
Be like, you meddling kids.
Yeah. And to come back as a ghost to tell people don't sleep in that one bed.
Yeah.
You're not going to like it.
That's my one message.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny. I was listening to some podcast who it's these like Jungian analysts. I feel like I'm constantly talking about this podcast.
Okay.
It's a great show. But one of the women on the show grew up in a haunted house and like consistently had experiences in her bedroom. And it was a recurring figure, like man, not a menacing man the way that David was, but like a man who would show up in her bedroom. And she had a mom who was also a Jungian analyst. And the mom, instead of being like, oh, it's all in your head, like, you know, you don't have to worry about that. It's all made up. The mom was like, ask him what he wants. And the woman was like, respectfully, Mom, I'm not going to fucking do that. Yeah. Like, thank you so much for that advice. But like, I'm not asking that man what he wants from me.
It's like the whole, if you're always running from something in a dream, turn around and face it. And you're like, yeah, that's great. But have you seen a wall of snakes? Yeah. Like, no, thank you.
Absolutely not. Yeah, no, my back is to the snakes and I am at full sprint.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, I feel like if it was reoccurring, if I had something like that happen to me now, right? It's just me and my wife. We have no children involved in the picture. and we stay somewhere that is reoccurringly haunted to the point where we have to address it, I'd be like, okay, do we think we could tackle this?
For sure.
Should we do something? Me as a 12-year-old?
No.
God, I would be like, hey, what do you want? I would be like, you're not there. If I don't think you're there, you're not there.
A blankie over the head screaming bloody murder until this apparition goes away. What I have done though is, again, like if I'm going into the back room at the Adirondacks to get something, which again, I try to minimize as much as possible. There have been a few times where like out loud, I'll be like, I'm not afraid of you. I'm here, you little shit. And I'm not afraid.
Everything is cool. I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm not
I am
scared.
A-okay. No worries.
Burning sage, like to get a towel.
The whole family is like having conversations about me. They're like, Isabel's not good. She hasn't been good since David.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's scary. This one is probably going to go a little bit longer because it's the final one of the season. But like, I called my mom today to ask her about her ghost thing experience. She, when she was younger, went to a psychic who was her friend's mom, I believe. And she was telling me about this. I asked her today to be like, hey, what's that story? Because I remember I wanted to hear it again. But she went home and after her psychic reading or whatever, and she kind of felt like a little weird, went to bed, woke up in kind of like a half asleep daze and saw this like red, like strobing light outside her window. And she even goes, I thought it was a police car.
Sure.
And then the light started like growing in intensity and then moved into the bedroom. Basically.
No. So the red light was like in the room with her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she said that basically it would reoccur for a while where it would like, she'd be like always like about half asleep. And then this red light would flash in like a corner. And then one night it like came down into the room and she said it was like a 3-foot like sphere of this red light. And there was a man in a hat sitting in it. And she said it was this like evil presence.
Oh.
And just like this whole like.
What you're describing is certainly not a friendly presence.
Definitely not friendly.
Yeah.
And it was like obviously terrifying. I don't know how she reacted to it in that moment, but that's what she saw and was very freaked out by it. And eventually, like this was like a reoccurring thing. Like the man with the hat was like the apex of it, but it eventually went away after some time. And what she was telling me was that she, at that time, she was not in like a good place, like physically or emotionally.
Yep.
And she thinks that going to the psychic like opened the door and something latched onto her.
Oh,
and then over time, she started taking better care of herself and got more healthy and got more solid. And then it just stopped happening, which I thought was really an interesting one.
Actually, that's so profound because I feel like there's all of this like funky work that some like, again, a lot of like psychoanalysts will do about like the subconscious and like an untreated subconscious can actually like manifest as something that feels like very menacing. So I'm just saying your mom, there's like, it's not entirely surprising that like, if you're not good with yourself, like whatever is emerging with like outside of you does feel like a little bit menacing or charged. But damn, that's crazy. It's honestly the reason why I will never go to a psychic. I will never go to a medium. We've already confirmed that I am a conduit for a lot of things. So it's like, I don't want to know
Thank you.
what more I'm capable of.
Yeah, I talked about this in the third episode with Aaliyah, but I'm like, no tarot, no psychics, nothing like that.
No.
It's like, I just don't want to touch it. It's like, I know if I touch it, then I'm going to feel weird about it. And then who knows what is going to happen.
Take me out in a plane crash.
Yeah. Take
me out. Like that I'm fine with. Like I'm fine with submitting to the unknown of plane travel again and again. I am not okay with submitting to the unknown of tarot cards. Like it's not happening. Yeah.
And I'm like, you want me to have someone with just like a nose piercing and stick and poke tattoos just be like, hey, let's open some weird spiritual door at this
you want me to go into a basement in McDougal Street?
Yeah.
With like one Pomeranian dog sitting like near the cash register. Like I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
It just doesn't. I understand there's like an appeal to some people to like force psychics because there's kind of like a sense of security is like, oh, they know maybe just a little more than I do. And that makes me feel good. But also I'm like, we all have a story that no one will believe.
Yes.
And I don't feel comfortable with someone who is dabbling in this for cash.
Absolutely.
Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah. And if I'm Venmoing you afterwards to be told that I'm dying in 12 days, like that also feels kind of weird.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm scanning a QR code after you told me I have like 48 hours to go.
Yeah, right. You're like, you're in grave danger. And you're like, all right.
Okay, what's your Venmo again?
Do you take Zelle? Yeah.
I remember in middle school, we had like, it wasn't a psychic, but it was like one of those like classic middle school like assembly things where we were like taught how to read our palms. And I'll never forget being told that I had a small lifeline, whatever that like line is by your thumb. Like that shit has stuck with me from that assembly on.
You shouldn't do that.
I'm like, if
kids.
I can't handle like an assembly palm reading, then certainly, like the crystal ball vibe is not for me.
I can't believe they were doing that in school. Like, I feel like, and not to, I'm sure there could be the random person who listens to this podcast who's like, you know what? It's time to curse him. But like, I feel like doing palm reading is like, that's so phrenology adjacent to me, where I'm like, imagine the kid doing an assembly and they're like, oh, because you have these bumps in your skull. You're doomed,
lesser than.
You're lesser than. Yeah. You're doomed to fail. You're doomed to prison. Like,
I know. I'm like, can't you just do a fucking like assembly on tolerance like the rest of schools? Like, please don't read my palms.
Don't read my palms. No, thank you.
So, yeah, keep my palms out of this and my skull while you're at it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always one of those things where it's on the border of everybody's curiosity because it is this unknown. And then people who are really into it, you're like, hey, just stay like away from me.
Yeah, like, do you like love is love, but like not near me.
Yeah,
please.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah.
And on that same college road trip, we were driving to New Orleans, and it's like a 4-hour drive, I think, from Baton Rouge. And on the way, I'm like, hey, I'm driving, like, read me some New Orleans facts. And we went through all the folklore and all the legends. And I was like, this place feels like if Halloween was a city.
Yes. Oh my God. It's like Tim Burton couldn't have invented a city like New Orleans.
Yeah. And they're literally like, everyone knows the 7 gates to the underworld are in the French Quarter while you're getting drunk and smoking cigars indoors.
Yeah. How do you like those
hell
beignets?
Is right there. Yeah.
Hades is underneath you.
Exactly. And there's something like that was just so weird about it. I'm like, we are just driving on the interstate.
Yeah.
To a city, and I'm scared before we're even there. And it's gonna be fine. We're gonna stay in a nice hotel and then go drink. It's gonna be good. But like, geez.
Yeah,
like,
no, there's something insidious under us. I got the same vibes in Savannah, Georgia.
Oh, yes.
There's just like weeping willows everywhere. I'm like, if the town tree is a weeping willow, something's up.
I went there. I've only been there once. It was for a wedding. And my wife and I, we drove down in one shot. So it's like a 12-hour drive from here, 13. We arrive at night and we stayed in a hotel in the far west end of like the town, right?
Yep.
And for whatever reason, instead of Google Maps driving us through Savannah, where we would be like, oh, cool, look at this place, it drove us through like the abandoned buildings on the north edge. So we're driving through these like abandoned buildings. There's like rundown churches.
Yeah.
And then there's all this Spanish moss. And it's like 10 p.m. at night. I was like, why is this place so goddamn scary? I heard this place was sick and I'm terrified.
No, exactly. It's so funny. I feel like Google Maps is like, you're going to learn.
Yeah. You're
going to learn what this city's up to real quick.
I used to listen to a podcast called And That's Why We Drink. It's still going on. Fantastic podcast. But it's hosted by 2 people. One woman does like a true crime story at the beginning. Cool. And the other person does a paranormal, ghosts, aliens, spirits, haunting, whatever.
Yep.
And it's a 2-for-1. They did an episode about like Savannah, Georgia, and there's like there's like buildings there that have been there since like the 1600s because like pirates would like shore there. And
yes, like the mercantile. Yes, 100%.
So it's like, oh, this place is like Savannah, New Orleans, older than everything else that Americans do.
It has seen so many iterations of this scary country that like we could not possibly wrap our brains around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know people hate what do we call it? The gentrification buildings, the apartment buildings that are cubes. I don't necessarily like them, but what I like about them is fresh build, guaranteed no spirits.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, give me a soul crushing gray box. please.
Yeah.
A sign that there's a safe haven somewhere close.
Yes.
Like, would it be the house that I buy? Of course not. Like, but it is like a beacon of hope when you see like a heinous new build where you're like, you are safe.
You're safe. Yeah.
I'm hanging in that lobby for a while.
If someone was like, you have two choices of home, you have a lovely Victorian manor or a brutalist bunker. I'm like, bunker every day. Give me the brutalism.
Yeah.
Ghosts hate concrete. All right. Like, but stuff made of wood built by people that are dead a long time ago.
Oh my God.
Definitely
yeah.
haunted.
Because you know what's going to happen? We're going to, like decide to redo the kitchen and the contractor's going to be like, you're going to want to see what we find behind the wall.
Yeah.
And it's just,
it's drowned David in his flannel.
It's just a wet flannel.
Yeah.
They'll be following me around.
My friend Caleb lives with his grandpa who bought a brownstone in like downtown Brooklyn in like the 60s or something. Yep. So his neighborhood, beautiful. Like one of those streets you bike down and you're like, Jesus Christ, someday.
Kill me.
Someday. And it's funny, the first time we went over there, his grandpa lives in the garden level. And so Caleb has 3 floors to himself. And like one floor is like his like bedroom, kitchen, hangout. The floor above it is kind of like a general storage, extra bedrooms. But the bottom floor is clearly where his grandma and grandpa lived back in like the 70s, 80s, stuff like that. Because the carpet is all old and it's got the bookshelf, the old family photos.
Yep.
Nothing's been renovated. All the stairs to go up are like tilted a little. And I remember saying, I was like, dude, what's it like living in a haunted house?
Truly.
I'm not saying it's haunted. I don't think there's any haunting or anything. But like, as soon as I step into a place that reminds me of the past, I'm like,
Ghosts
for sure,
all around.
Yes.
Yeah. My great grandma's house, like, and again, no one had died in this house. It was just like, she had relics in it where I was like, what's that urn? Are there ashes in the urn? She'd be like, it's just an urn. I'm just like, prove it. Oh, empty it. Show me the ashes.
Yeah, with the phone flashlight.
Yeah. I'm like, it's clear. But no, I'm with you. I am so equally fascinated and repelled by haunted spaces. So that's all I got for you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talk about it. This is a blast. For listeners, she basically was on her podcast and was like, I had this crazy stuff happen to me. I was like, hey, do you want to just run that back on my podcast?
And I said, I got a lot to work through. So like, for sure.
So great stuff. Thank you for coming in. This is very creepy.
Oh my God. Thanks for having me.
Where can the people find you?
You can find me and my good friend Carrie Keys at Floundering Pod on Instagram. Listen to us on Apple and Spotify if you feel so moved to, and if not, I can't blame you. No worries, whatever.
Guys, go check it out. It's a fun podcast. They're very good people. They have a good banter. Follow me on Instagram at asparaguts. And listen, guys, DM me if you want to come on the podcast and share your spooky stuff. Because otherwise, this is it until next year, baby. Happy Halloween. Bye.